Episode 583, Inside the Clinic. Alex made his choice. He had chosen to accept the clinic. "Oh," Sophie said. At first she had felt relieved, but now she experienced an irrational burst of anger. "I know I should be glad about this, but part of me can't help but feeling disappointed. He could have at least thought about it instead of dismissing me so easily." Taking a deep breath, she suppressed her feelings and managed to remain calm. Alex had reluctantly agreed to take over the Woodside Clinic, but he felt he should do something to make it up to Isaiah. "Maybe I could pass on how to use the harmony technique," he thought. "If I do that, then not only will Isaiah not lose out, but he could also stand to make a lot of money." "Alex, this way, please," Sophie said. "Let me show you around Woodside." Alex nodded and they walked to the clinic. "There are 3 outbuildings," Sophie said, pointing them out. "This one's for the staff accommodation, but the current doctor goes back to his home each night, so there's no one living here now. The middle building contains the pharmacy, while the front building is used as a waiting room." They reached a central doorway. "There are 8 wards in the main building," she continued. "Each has a doctor and 2 assistants. On average, there are about 1,000 visitors a day, and the cost of treatment varies, but it makes a good profit each month." She paused. "By the way, I should tell you that the clinic also sells some less conventional medicines." Alex was surprised. "That's unexpected, but you're making a really good turnover." "Oh, it's not about the money," Sophie said, smiling at him. "My father cares deeply about poorer families and wishes to help them, so he donates a lot of his time." Isaiah must be one of the top doctors in Baltimore, Alex thought. His medical skills are superb. "By the way, the chief physician at Woodside Clinic is also the manager," Sophie said. "Recently, my father and I haven't been there as much, so we left Dr. Glover in charge. But now that you're here, you can take control." Alex could tell she was relieved. It was odd because she was normally so confident. Then again, her father wasn't around to run the place, and Sophie was still young and inexperienced. Perhaps it was all too much for her, and it was probably difficult for her to stand up to a more senior staff member like Dr. Glover. "Alex, come in and I'll introduce you," Sophie said, leading him inside. Although there were dozens of patients waiting at the door, the 8 doctors and their assistants were standing around chatting. Listening in, Alex heard fragments about a flash new car one of the doctors had recently bought. He heard gossip about someone winning big money on the lottery, and about the dress some actress had barely worn at a film premiere. But no one was discussing medicine or their patients or comparing treatments. Alex frowned. "Okay," Sophie called out. "There are patients waiting." The crowd was muttering, clearly unhappy about the wait. "Please be patient," Sophie told them. "You'll all be seen shortly." Not one of the 8 doctors or the many assistants so much as looked at Sophie. They continued to talk happily about going to a party on the weekend. Sophie called out again. "Everybody be quiet. I want to introduce you to—" "Shh," Dr. Ann Glover said. "We're talking. Don't interrupt us. Haven't you learned any manners? Your father told us not to indulge you, and that we need to be strict with you, like we would be with an apprentice." She stopped and looked down her nose at Alex. "Go and take your assistant to the pharmacy." Mistaking Alex for Sophie's assistant, she turned on her heel and went back to her clinic, calling back over her shoulder, "You better not make any mistakes today." "Dr. Glover, why aren't the patients being seen yet?" Sophie called out to her. Alex stared, startled, as the woman turned around and said, "We haven't opened yet." Alex took a closer look at her. She was about the same age as Caroline Hall, and she was wearing a white coat. She held herself proudly, and Alex had to admit the woman had a strong presence. But right now, her face showed anger as she jabbed a finger at Sophie. You have no idea how this place is run, Anne said, glaring at Sophie. I'm the one who holds this clinic together. If you weren't Isaiah's daughter, you wouldn't even dream of walking in here and telling us how to do our jobs. If you think you can just waltz in here and throw your weight around, you've got another thing coming. Pull your head in, or I'll resign and go work elsewhere. The rest of the doctors walked off, looking at Sophie with disdain. When Anne had finished speaking, they deliberately raised the volume of their conversations, not afraid that Sophie would hear. More than a dozen assistants were also joking and laughing, paying no attention to Sophie. Sophie stuttered, how dare... Anne spoke over her. Right, everyone, time to get to work. The receptionist began to call patients' names, sending them off with a doctor. At the same time, Anne also called out to several pharmacists. Let Sophie dispense the medicine today. None of you are to help her. She glared at Sophie. If you are late with just one patient's prescription, then it'll be your job to sweep the floor later. A few pharmacists laughed awkwardly and stepped aside to stop working. What? You can't do that, Sophie said. Furious, she wanted to argue, but Alex put his hand on her arm. It's okay, he said. We'll deal with the medicines together. That settled, Alex and Sophie got to work behind the pharmacy counter. Alex quickly scanned the shelves. There were nearly 1,000 types of medicines there, but he made sure to remember all their positions. He knew many of them from when he had studied biology. No sooner had he finished memorizing them than patients came over with 8 prescriptions. Sophie picked up one, read it, and then filled the prescription. Alex, however, picked up 7 at once, glanced at the prescriptions, and then looked at the patient's face, frowning slightly. He didn't say anything, instead starting to make the medicine according to the prescription. Not only had he memorized the location of the ingredients, but he was also able to judge the weights and amounts without checking, so he quickly grasped the 7 medicines. Sophie saw Alex's speed and familiarity with the medicines. That's incredible, she thought. How can he do that so quickly? Stop! Stop that at once, Anne shouted, storming over to them. She pushed a patient aside and pointed at Alex. Who told you to do this?